Fender is now officially competing with their own dealers, both in new guitars and used guitars.
What's the only thing better than scoring a new guitar? Getting a deal on a certified pre-owned Fender.
Certified pre-owned Fender. Let's talk about this. This video came out yesterday and I dropped everything to make sure that I could get this video done. Fender has just announced that they are partnering with Reverb and that they are going to be launching a series of guitars being sold through Reverb. Not a series, but they're going to be selling guitars through Reverb that are pre-owned. This is the first time Fender has ever done this, and to me, immediately there's a huge problem with this. There's a couple big problems with this. Fender is now officially competing with their own dealers, both in new guitars and used guitars. I will give a disclaimer. Fender's been a great sponsor. They've been probably the most active and good sponsor for me of this channel. Lots of guitars have come. I've had a really good working relationship with them. I really enjoy Fender. I love their guitars. This video is just about the business practice. It is also about the community and some of the claims made in this Reverb video. So let me read just a couple things from the press release and then we'll come back and I'll give some of my comments. Fender pre-owned guitars are used instruments that have been inspected, repaired if needed, and certified by Fender to ensure that they meet the company's quality standards. Here's a breakdown of what that typically involves. Inspection and testing, refurbishment, certification, documentation, and quality assurance. These guitars are a good choice for players who want a quality instrument at a lower price point. That's admirable. I like that. With the added confidence that it has been vetted by Fender. Where did these guitars come from? And I had to do some sleuthing, but I found, where do these guitars come from? Because I have some suspicions. I don't think these are all coming from players. I think that there's some big bank bailing out that's happening here. So, where do these guitars come from? Fender sources certified pre-owned guitars from a variety of channels, including trade-ins. Many of these guitars come from trade-ins at authorized Fender dealers. Customers who trade in their old guitars often receive credit towards a new purchase, and those used guitars are then evaluated for certification. Dealer returns. These are pre-owned guitars that come from dealer returns. These are guitars that were returned to dealers, or I guess from dealers, either because they were excess inventory or because the original buyer changed their mind. Number 3, they're demo models. So demo models would be guitars that have been used as demos in stores, at trade shows, and have then become certified pre-owned. These instruments are blah, blah, blah. Fender's own inventory. Read a lot into that. Fender's own inventory. Fender may also source pre-owned guitars from their inventory or from customer returns that were never sold as new. Last one. Fender's authorized service centers. So this would be guitars that have been repaired or refurbished from Fender's authorized service centers that may also enter the Fender certified pre-owned program. Each guitar undergoes a rigorous inspection and refurbishment process in order to make sure it meets Fender's quality. So, okay, here's my thoughts. I want to walk through some of these claims one by one. Fender has partnered with Reverb. That should say a lot. This is Fender directly competing with their own dealers, because where do their own dealers sell a lot of their guitars? They sell them on Reverb. They sell new Fenders, and there's an entire huge ecosystem. You know, there's 70 years worth of Fender guitars out there now. So number one, this is one of the largest guitar manufacturers selling directly to customers, cutting out their dealers and their support system and their network, and they're selling directly through Reverb. So they are straight up competing. The fact that they're backed by Fender, that's a good thing. That's good. It means they stand by their guitars, they stand by the longevity and the lifespan of those guitars. Because Fender guitars really can live on pretty much indefinitely. There's such an ecosystem of parts. There's such an agreed upon value when you see that headstock and you see Fender on a headstock. It does mean that you're going to sell that guitar faster, you're going to get more money for it, it's going to be more valued, and there's just, all those parts. Priced competitively. This is a really interesting thing. Okay, the way Fender sells guitars, typically they've got 40%, 45%, maybe even up to 50% on certain guitars for margin. So the thing is, this is Fender selling directly. They're cutting out their dealers. Normally with their dealers, they share in that profit. So a guitar shop would typically make 30 points, 35 points. And so what's happening here is Fender is selling them for 25% off for most of them that are coming down. So that means Fender is selling new guitars like for 25% off, which means they're making 10% more than they would make otherwise. So this is an interesting kind of money grab. They're cutting out dealers, they're making more money. In the Reverb video about these, it says that some are lower than used market value. Not for long. This will tank the value of the used market. This is the same thing that PRS did about a year and a half ago. PRS had huge drops in sales of their guitars, and they had a huge just glug of inventory coming in, and they were stuck in a warehouse. And so they dropped the price by 20% for all dealers, and that then tanked the used value. It tanked the perceived value of the new guitars, and now has really slowed down the sale of those new guitars. So this is, it's a big problem. It's a terrible problem. It's good for the community, they claim. I would argue that it's pretty bad for the community. Now, it's great. It's great for people that want to buy a guitar for the first time, want to buy a new-ish guitar, but in the end, there already is an answer. If you want a ton of value in a used guitar, that's where small guitar shops, that's where reverb shops, that's where this is already served. But this is now a big corporation coming in and taking over a place that lots of small businesses had been. So it ends up being pretty rough for used guitar values, because if you buy a guitar and you want it to hold its value, or you already bought a used guitar, all of a sudden, if they're coming in at 25% off of where they were, then they're just going to drop. It's just going to flood the market. And that's good. I mean, prices will come down, and not many prices are coming down in 2024. So I can see the good of this, but I think if you already own one of these guitars, or I come out of it thinking that this is probably not as good as it would have been. It gives a guitar a second life, they claim, and it uses less resources than building a new guitar. I think the reality is we probably don't need nearly as many new guitars as we have, but we live in a system that is based on consumption, and so we have to pump out guitars. There has to be this constant thing. Now, the tension that all guitar companies have been feeling is that we don't like innovation, we don't like change, and so we end up just getting like Stratocasters for decades, and they just keep getting made over and over and over. And so at this point now, so many resources are being used to buy guitars that will be consumed, and then everybody has more guitars than they actually need. So I don't know, it's a bit of flimsy logic. So let me tie this all together. So these are guitars that are pre-owned by who? Let me talk about this. Where did these guitars come from? I read what Fender said. Here's what I think. I think Fender and all guitar manufacturers have way too many guitars in inventory. I think that they have pushed those and sold those and required in dealer contracts that small shops, like so Hometown Music that I worked for a couple years, Hometown Music was required to have every series represented in at least one or two colors, and there were some other tweaks to it. But it made it to where we already had a lot of Fender guitars, and then we still had to make a huge order at the beginning of the year. And year over year, the small dealers end up doing this. Now, the big companies get to do this as well. Sweetwater, Guitar Center, Sam Ash, I guess RIP Sam Ash. But these big guitar companies get to do that. I think Sam Ash is probably actually one of the big problems here. These guitars are coming from dealers that overbought, backed out of orders after COVID and the world got a little more back to normal. And so they had this huge amount of used inventory that was new that could be used. So most of these guitars, I have two. Now these are just my hunches. I don't have any real evidence to back this up. But I think number one, I think most of these guitars come from the big orders from the big guys that backed out. Because I know for sure Fender is not going around and asking their small and medium-sized dealers, hey, do you have any old inventory that's stale? We'll take that back. We'll buy it back from you. I know that is not happening. So it is not helping the businesses that were forced to buy in and they didn't have the luxury of being a multi-million dollar ordering machine. And so these guitars are coming from the big orders that got canceled from dealers, from the big Guitar Center and those dealers. dealers. My other suspicion, and I have no evidence to back this up, but I would assume that there's probably a level of guitars that were bought by a firm or these financing companies that people just are not able to pay for them, and so they're taking those guitars back. And so those are coming back, and then they're getting spruced up and zhuzhed up again. So overall, I think that this is, I think it's bad. Overall, I think it's bad. I'll say who it's the most good for. It's the most good for beginning and intermediate players that want a cool guitar from Fender. They want it to feel new. They trust a warranty a lot. For me, I don't care about a warranty. I am the warranty. That's a Tavarish line. But guitars aren't complicated, so you don't need a warranty. Like, unless they're making just like guitars. But Fender doesn't do that. They make really good guitars. So anyway, so these are for somebody that really wants a new guitar that has a warranty and is certified. And it's nothing can go wrong ever. But that's not who most guitar buyers should be, or I think actually are. So I think this is bad for small shops. I think it's bad for the industry. If you own one of these guitars already, it's going to be bad for the used value of your guitar. If you are someone who just likes kind of moving through stuff, trying stuff for a while, and I think it's bad for you too. I mean, the upside is prices are going down on this stuff. The bad side is it is going to, like, all of us, like, we expect a value. The guitar community is a group of people that interact with each other and agree on things together. And so this comes in, cuts out small businesses, and undervalues, or like affects the value of things that are just owned by teenagers, people in their 20s, you know, like lots of young players are going to get hit by this pretty hard. So that's my thought on the Fender Pre-Owned. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Am I totally wrong? Did I just totally miss this? Yeah, tell me what you think.
We'll sink his breath.